Hi, Eddie.
Hey.
Venom was filled with action, adventure, aliens, and a blossoming friendship between Eddie and his symbiote buddy. But the new symbiote about to be introduced in Venom 2 is anything but friendly. With Cletus and Carnage set to join Venom 2, the symbiote universe is about to get a whole lot darker. And we're not talking color scheme. Here's how Venom 2 is about to up the stakes for Marvel's dark universe. If Venom taught us anything about what to expect from the symbiotes, it's that they love power and criminals. So power-hungry criminals? That's exactly their cup of tea. With that in mind, it's no surprise that Venom 2 will introduce Cletus Kasady, a deranged man who was already a human monster before he became fused with a chaotic symbiote Carnage. We got our first look at Woody Harrelson as Cletus during the end credit scenes in Venom. Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock was sent to interview him in prison after Cletus refused to talk with anyone else. Besides his hideous red wig, which was a little hard to look past, Cletus's words during the end credit scenes were quite chilling. He vows that when he escapes containment,
There's gonna be carnage.
Fans of the symbiotes knew this could only mean one thing. The red-haired psychopath was definitely Cletus Kasady, and Venom 2 would see him fuse with a terrifying symbiote Carnage. Carnage being included in the sequel is enough to know that the film is going to have to get a lot darker. You might think Venom is a bit of a maniac, but he has nothing on Carnage. In the comics, Cletus and Eddie were inmates together. When Venom came to break out Eddie, it left a piece of itself behind. This symbiote offspring merged with Cletus, turning him into Carnage. And from there, the pair would break out of prison themselves and go on a terrifying crime spree. Since Eddie isn't in prison in the Venom movies, it's likely that Carnage is about to get born some other way as Eddie visits Cletus in jail. But the specifics of the symbiote's birth don't really matter so much. What does matter is how incredibly dangerous Carnage is, and how his inclusion in Venom 2 is guaranteed to make this new movie a whole lot darker than its predecessor. First, let's look at the facts. The movie had a proposed R rating which the studio has reportedly decided to push down to PG-13. This might make you think that Venom 2 will be tame, but it also means that the original script was dark and adult enough to get an R rating. Bringing it down to PG-13 will take out some of the gore and swearing, sure, but it doesn't mean that the film won't explore some very dark subject matter. For example, Cletus has a lot of childhood trauma. He was attacked by his mother, who was then taken out by his father. Then Cletus lied about it in court, and his father ended up getting the electric chair. And if that's not messed up enough, he also pushed his grandmother down the stairs as a child. So yeah, he's not a big family man. These are all pretty messed up scenarios, but they could definitely make it into a PG-13 movie. That brings us to the next point. Cletus's childhood is so messed up. His mind is a pit of despair and cruelty. That's one of the reasons Carnage chose him in the first place. Cletus's desire for destruction is like candy to a symbiote, and unlike Venom's main villain, Life Foundation CEO Carlton Drake, who is fused with the symbiote Riot, Cletus doesn't usually have a strict goal in mind when he's wreaking havoc. He just likes to destroy things and cause torment. That's a pretty messed up place for a villain to come from. Carnage is actually pretty similar to a major DC villain that we all know and have a love-hate relationship with, the Joker. While the Joker has had various intriguing storylines and has definitely made us feel bad for him, we can't deny that he's truly psychotic. Joker storylines tend to be very dark and explore the character's trauma and total lack of empathy, like with Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of the complicated character in 2019. One of the best hints about how Cletus might be depicted on screen is courtesy of these Joker portrayals and how they always seem to get really dark. Though the two supervillains are different in the way that they approach their crimes, they each tackle the world with cruelty and violence. We wouldn't put it past the Venom 2 team to take a few pointers from character-driven villain origin stories like Joker when deciding how to properly and effectively portray Cletus. Carnage's insane powers make it nearly impossible for a film featuring him to not be pretty bleak and violent. There's not a lot of hope for people who are up against the deranged symbiote. His powers actually exceed every other symbiote we've seen so far, with only Venom really able to try and take him on. And even then, Venom needs the help of Spider-Man quite often in the comics. This could be one of the film's reasons for wanting to make Carnage such a dark, unstoppable character. If he's big enough a match for Venom, he could stick around for more movies and entice the appearance of Spider-Man in the Venom films, which would be an interesting step in Marvel's supposed dark universe that includes films like Morbius, which just so happens to tease a crossover with Spider-Man in its trailer. We're just saying that the web-slinger and Venom might have a wonderful future together. But do you think Carnage's inclusion might help spark this crossover? Drop your thoughts in the comments. So what are these crazy powers that make Carnage one of the toughest Marvel villains? Well, he has all the same powers as Venom, but he's stronger, faster, more agile. We really could go on. He's like an updated version of Eddie's best friend. In addition to these improved stats, he can actually produce some terrifying weapons that he can hurtle at people. And of course he's got those classic tendrils and web-slinging powers down, just like his symbiote father. While Venom and Eddie form a kind of anti-hero by the end of the first movie, there are a few major differences between Cletus and Carnage's bond that makes it unlikely they'll ever be able to find a healthy way to get along and deal with their issues. The Carnage symbiote is actually fused with Cletus's blood, which makes Carnage and Cletus way more bonded than Venom and Eddie Brock could ever be. When Eddie and Venom are combined, they usually go by we. When Cletus and Carnage are combined, they go by I. This inability to separate their identities from one another makes them an even fiercer foe to go up against, but it also gives Carnage the ability to turn into Maximum Carnage. And yeah, that's just as serious as it sounds. Maximum Carnage is an almost unstoppable threat. When Carnage is eventually removed from Cletus and the criminal is transferred to the Ravencroft Institute, the doctors are unaware that the symbiote is still in the Psycho's bloodstream. Carnage breaks out of the prison and recruits an army of bad guys to his side. Then they brutalize the city, because why not? So will Venom 2 go down this particularly villainous route? It's very possible, because one of Carnage's crew members, and eventually Cletus's girlfriend, is going to be part of the film. Naomie Harris will be playing Shriek, a banshee-like villain who can use sound waves to attack people. Like Cletus, she had a pretty messed up childhood. She was abused by her mother, which led to her pursuing a life of crime as she got older. One of her powers is actually dark empathy, which allows her to bring the dark side out of people. This is a good hint that the storyline for Venom 2 will be a lot darker than the first, because Shriek is literally going to make the people around her act out their darkest desires. If that's not enough power for one crazy woman to have, you can add in the fact that she's telekinetic and can levitate objects and people. When she's with Carnage, things just keep getting a whole lot worse for everyone else around them. A clue that Venom 2 might follow the Maximum Carnage storyline is courtesy of Shriek's involvement. She was first introduced in Maximum Carnage, so the filmmakers might stay true to book and include other villains like Doppelganger. It would also be a good opportunity for the Spider-Man Dark Universe crossover to happen, since Venom teams up with a web-slinger to stop the villains and even recruits the help of Morbius. Venom screenwriter Jeff Pinkner has confirmed that this is a real possibility by saying, without revealing anything that I'm not allowed to reveal, it is not impossible that in the future, upcoming Venom movies, Spider-Man will play a significant role. We're telling you guys, this team-up is becoming more and more likely every day. But with all this talk about Carnage, what about Eddie and Venom? It's likely that the movie will play up the fact that Carnage is a direct result of Venom, so Eddie will likely deal with a lot of emotional turmoil dealing with the fact that he feels responsible for all the chaos Carnage is causing. Violence isn't the only way for a movie to go dark. Eddie dealing with being responsible for lives lost is going to be traumatic and likely pretty heartbreaking. Venom is definitely a series of films that are meant to be fun, but things can get pretty serious in the sequel. Amongst all the crazy fighting and CGI, there's going to be some real serious stuff that Eddie has to deal with. And we wouldn't be surprised if Eddie and Venom had to give in to some darker tendencies in order to become stronger and defeat Carnage. It's almost guaranteed that Eddie and Venom will make some mistakes in their hunt to defeat Carnage. So far, the pairs prove that they're nowhere near perfect, but Carnage will definitely be throwing a huge wrench in their plans as they try to unify with each other and become better people. Venom 2 has also made a major change in director. Venom wasn't really sure if it would end up being a major success or a complete flop. It was a pretty brave move on their part to even include an end credit scene setting up a sequel. But the risk paid off and Venom 2 is getting a well-deserved push. Director Ruben Fleischer has been replaced by Andy Serkis, who's a fresh face to directing. His most notable projects so far are Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle, and shooting second unit on the Hobbit trilogy. But while he's pretty new to directing, Serkis's involvement guarantees that at least the effects will be much better this time around. Even with the PG-13 rating, we can expect the symbiotes to look much more realistic and much scarier with an effect-conscious director and a bigger budget. The film will be released on October 2nd, 2020. We're still waiting for an official trailer, or a teaser, or really anything other than some on-set photos. But fingers crossed that it'll be worth the wait and Venom will keep its fun action elements while also digging even deeper into what it feels like to have a symbiote alien creature sharing a body with you. As for keeping Carnage around if Venom gets another film, well, let's just say that Venom might keep getting darker and darker as time goes on. If Venom 2 and Morbius do well in cinemas, there's a bright future ahead for adult-only Marvel movies. Marvel's Dark Universe might take a cue from Deadpool and prove there's a profitable space for R-rated superhero adventures. but only time will tell. Do you think Carnage will make Venom 2 a much darker film? What other villains and symbiotes are you hoping to see in the new movie? Let us know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to CBR for more. Thanks for watching and see you next time.